Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having us. I don't know what happened in the presentation, so it looks a little blurry. So I'll talk my way through it if you can't see everything. And forewarning, I'm used to wandering around, so standing here in one place is going to test my ADD, but we'll get through it. So this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about an award that PennDOT District 3 won, or was presented in February by the International Slurry Surfacing Association. It was presented at our annual conference out in California. And unlike a lot of other awards, this award is not about a specific project. Rex had alluded to this, but this award is a story of a timeline, along a timeline, about collaboration and dedication. Dedication to the district wanting to keep their good roads good. Dedication to working with others and finding the right candidates, the right processes, the right mix designs, and willing to change. Which I think is a testament to their belief in microsurfacing and their belief in pavement preservation. And on the collaboration side, I give them a lot of credit for reaching out to a whole world of different people who could try to help them, whether it was PEMA, people within ISSA, EMA, other people around PennDOT, as well as around the country, who have had maybe similar drawbacks, similar issues, and wanting to understand the processes that they had, understand the tools that they had, and not only understand the tools, but how to use them. Everyone may know what a claw hammer is, but not necessarily when to use it. So District 3 has been dedicated to that for the last, as long as we've been working with them. And this story dates back about 10 to 15 years. And it's a PEMA story. There's a lot of contractors in this room that have worked with District 3, have seen all types of roads, types of specifications, and credit to them for evolving over time. So for those of you that don't know, let me back up a second. So I just want to give a little credit to Justin Blakeney and Jeff Kerr. They've kind of led the charge of this as district executive and materials engineer. They've had an open mind throughout this process for the last decade plus, and have kept a tally of things that work and don't work, and have continually come to PEMA and other resources to make sure that they're continually improving. So District 3, most of you in the room probably know where District 3 is, but central Pennsylvania, covering Bradford, Columbia, Lycoming, Montour, Northumberland, Snyder, Sullivan, Tioga, and Union County. The district manages a total of 4,500 road miles and almost 3,000 bridges. Home of the Little League Road Series. About 8 or 10 years ago, we actually had the privilege of putting microsurfacing down right in front of the Little League Road Series, about a week before the Little League Road Series started. So I don't have many gray hairs, but the ones that I do, I attribute to that project. The project went great in terms of quality. In terms of timeline, obviously we're up against it, but it ultimately worked out. So like I alluded to earlier, that the district itself has been a proponent of pavement preservation for a long time. The issues were choosing the right road candidates, choosing the right surface treatments or techniques to put on it, all working within their budget. Since 2020, so the last 4.5, 5 years, they've dedicated $16.8 million, and that number is up now that we're in 2025. And have done almost 230 miles of microsurfacing. On average, they let about 3 to 4 projects per year. And this has run the gamut on types of roads, right? So 4-digit state routes, 3 digits, major interstate work. And in many cases, they have kind of paired these different roads up together on the lettings. So you'll do a couple miles on a 4-digit state route on a 2-lane road. And then a couple miles away, you'll also be doing maybe 4 or 5 miles on an interstate. And this is where the collaboration starts to come into play. So prior to 2020, the district specified a single lift microsurfacing application, type A single lift, 25 to 30 pounds. Then they switched to a type B single lift, again, 25 to 30 pounds. And some of the projects were designed with multiple aggregates with various skid resistance levels. There were issues, right? So I go back to dedication and collaboration. Flushing was their main issue. They did see some rutting, low skid values, and rising per square yard costs. Now, when you look at this, and from a contractor's point of view, we were putting 25 to 30 pounds of microsurfacing down in one lift. And for those of you that aren't familiar with microsurfacing, in about 2.5 hours, I get to come back up and we'll go through microsurfacing. So I may be putting the cart ahead of the horse here, but we'll get to our application rates and that sort of stuff and how it can affect quality. But that is a heavy lift. It is a heavy single lift, especially provided with the fact that we want to have less than an hour return to traffic on the roadway. So essentially we're putting asphalt and thin aggregate down in a thicker layer, right? The more pounds per square yard, the thicker it gets. And then we're expecting a high volume roadway with large trucks and different type of traffic to return over it and not push the aggregate down or have the asphalt rise to the top. In other words, flushing, right? And we want to do this in the peak of summer on a hot day, and it's going to rain tomorrow, and all these other limitations that come into play. This was a concern and things that we saw that were causing the flushing. Rutting was also another issue. So a single lift, 25 to 30 pounds, that's on the high spot, right? That's not in the wheel rut. So we weren't rut filling prior to. So in some of these cases, in the low spot, in the wheel ruts, I don't know, what are you, 50 pounds, maybe more, maybe a little less, but that's a lot of material, especially in the most traveled part of the roadway. So we were putting now 50 pounds, for example, in a wheel rut at one time, and then returning traffic within an hour. Low skid values, if you have flushing, you will likely have low skid values. And then rising per square yard costs. Obviously, contractors were aware of these issues, design issues, and things that were experienced, right? So some of those square yard costs were starting to rise. District 3 materials, they started to collect and analyze all of the different quantitative data that they could. So from every contractor, from every project, every road, both road condition prior to the application, road condition immediately following application, and then months later, years later. The They attempted performing extraction tests to analyze asphalt content in the mix. So they were extracting it either from the paver, from the roadway, different methods that they were using in order to analyze, verify that the mix design that was submitted was either being followed or were there changes that they could make in the future. I don't know what that says, but we're so this is a single lift type B application, and we're starting to see we're demonstrating the flushing on the roadway. Right, so right in the wheel path, whether there was rutting or not, right, we're demonstrating flushing going on. In 2020, District 3 met with PEMA several times, but throughout those conversations, I think a rapport was developed, a trust factor was developed on both sides, right? And ultimately, everyone kind of came to the table saying, we want to find a solution. Right? And we throw all the other emotion out of it. We remove past experiences and different things. And we said, microsurfacing has a place here. We can agree on that. We can agree that we want to keep our good roads good. We want to continue to maintain our roadways. We need to collaborate, work together, and talk through these issues, figure out what's causing them, okay? And then how to fix them. Unemotionally, with stakeholders from both sides at the table, so that we can combine all of our experiences and come up with a method, an application process that both provides quality, but also fits within our budget. At the end of the day, we could go out and mill and fill all these roads. We could go buy a whole bunch of diamonds and pave them with diamonds, and hopefully, the diamonds last forever. But you can't afford it. We know that. So that's why microsurfacing in and of itself has a place here. The early conclusions that came out of this: consideration that project selection is a critical factor in successful application. And we'll go through candidate selection in a couple hours, but not all roadways are designed for microsurfacing. Just like a wrench isn't a hammer, right? We can't just go putting microsurfacing over everything. Rutting from pre-existing or post-construction was a major factor in achieving desired project outcome. Right, so as a single lift with no rut fill box, rutting was a major issue, both pre and it was coming back very quickly. Flushing and corresponding friction loss were occurring in wheel paths and in intersections. All right, we showed you the pictures of that. It was obvious. So we started reaching out to others, right? We knew that sometimes the opinion of PEMA or the contractors within that specific area may be perceived as bias, right? So we pulled ISSA in and said, we want opinions from all around the country, if not the world, on how to design these. We looked at the ISSA guidelines and technical bulletins, recommending that they be added to the PennDOT specifications. And so I know that Wally and a bunch of other PEMA folks are collaborating with PennDOT now to update microsurfacing specifications. But one of the things that came out of these meetings in District 3 specifically were special provisions that do not follow the PennDOT 408 specifically. And so they use the microsurfacing terminology, but then you turn to the back pages into all the special provisions of the contract, and things look much, much different than they would if you just designed them from the 408. Some of those tests you can find on the ISSA website. You can find it on roadresource.org. But the test methods themselves were pulled in not just off the 408, but out of the ISSA guidelines. Ultimately, recommended PennDOT reference the use of the ISSA Inspector's Manual as the guideline for design and construction. And so there's a lot of other people around the country that were doing this very successfully, both from a contractor point of view, but also from a department point of view. And those were referenced in these guidelines. We recommended that PennDOT continue to stay in touch with ISSA and attend the slurry systems workshop, which they have been able to do. Reiterated the focus on candidate selection and addressing pre-existing rutting. So whether the rutting was addressed with a rut fill box, using microsurfacing, or it was addressed via department forces and hot mix, there's different methods to do that. But the fact of the matter was we could not apply a microsurfacing at the proper poundage per square yard with pre-existing rutting. And we urge PennDOT to consider a double lift application in line with the industry best practices. We went back to relying on existing emulsion specifications. Those specifications are in place and they work. Mindfully improved criteria for project selection. PennDOT had a lot of forethought on this and went out and studied their roadways and have changed their criteria for project selection considerably. Select candidates based on condition assessment, ADT, primary usage, proximity to multiple roads. I can't speak for their exact criteria, but I know that it has evolved considerably over time. Not to mention the quality of work and quite frankly, the amount of work has either stayed the same or even increased because of these changes over the past few years. They've adjusted target yields to 20 pounds per square yard minimum for each lift. So if we go back, we were looking at a 35-pound single lift, and now we are somewhere around 20 pounds, almost cut that in half, right? And we went to a double application. And for the engineers in the room, this also adds strength, right? If you two 2x4s glued together is going to be stronger and break much less easy than a single 4x4, right? So when we start to stack layers, we provide a much stronger, and more durable lift. Established skid factor requirements. This was huge. So we knew that there was flushing. We weren't sure how to measure flushing. Both industry and the department were saying, what is flushing? We can see it, but just because I see it doesn't mean you see it, right? So what were we trying to prevent? Why was flushing bad? Flushing was bad because it was driving down skid-resistant values. Okay, so that's why we need to measure skid resistance. The neat thing about all of this, and we'll get into some of it, is that the skid-resistant values have cleared themselves up with a double lift application. Because now we are not seeing over-applied microsurfacing, and then allowing return to traffic to beat that material up before it's cured. So the flushing has gone away, which has allowed skid resistance levels to stay high. So we can test for skid resistance, but now we can all know, or inspectors, engineers, contractors alike, looking at a roadway, are confident in that the aggregate is doing its job that's on the roadway because there is no flushing. I can't read it up here either. So I am confident that Rex will probably be able to supply a lot of these presentations. But microsurfacing utilizes SRLH, SRLE, depending on traffic counts, depending on the specification of the project. When I'm able to send out this presentation to everybody, you'll be able to see the data that the department has collected and the considerable improvement of skid resistance levels from 2019 to 2020, and then from 2020 to today. As these specifications, double lift, types of roadway, candidate selection, all of those have improved and evolved over the last 5 to 6 years. These are some of the contract unit price adjustments for their skid resistant levels. I know that the department is proud of this, and as a contractor, I'm also proud of this, that there haven't, to my knowledge, hasn't been anything less than 100% payment since they have altered and evolved their specifications. So since a double lift has gone in, our skid resistance values across the industry, across microsurfacing projects, has met the 100% pay item. And so I kind of alluded to this before, but the district believed in microsurfacing, but not always happy with the results. As do the contractors, right? As contractors and as collaborators, as we work together, ultimately, we're trying to provide the best product for the traveling public. We all have to drive these roads. Industry was frustrated just as much as the department with the failures, the issues, the time spent talking about them, trying to make them right. Contested payments, disputes, those are all conversations that nobody wants to have. This evolved into this collaboration, PEMA and PennDOT District 3, holding annual meetings, and sometimes 5-6 years ago, Scott, you can probably attest to this, it was way more than annual meetings, right? We were talking quarterly, if not monthly, about design process, candidate selection, things we can do different. And then obviously there would be new people in the room. So we were trying to get everyone up to speed and get on the same page and accomplish the goal, right? Of preserving our roadways, keeping the traveling public on roads that they can be proud of, while being cost effective, working within our budgets. Ultimately, it led to open dialogue, trust, and teamwork between the agency and the industry. We had a lot of people in the room, all from different levels of companies, outside ISSA folks came in, design engineers, inspectors, everyone at the district level. And we all talked both about from candidate selection to the application process, mixed design process, application process, and then ultimately, how do we assess it? right? What are we looking for? Some numbers we can read. Right, so we improve skid resistance considerably, and then we are able to, and the department can attest to this, we're able to keep these skid resistance values for a longer period of time. So you can imagine if a roadway was starting to flush, the skid resistance values were going to fall off a cliff pretty quickly, right? So now we're able to not only meet these skid resistant values at the time of the assessment, but hold on to them for a long period of time. So now we're truly preserving our roadway, both in terms of aesthetics, rideability, but also friction, safety. We've seen dramatic improvement, right? And there are several contractors in the room that have worked on these projects, that have both been awarded the bids, carried out the work, and more recently been excited about the work and not held their breath as they were out on the roadway saying, just don't know if I totally believe in the design, right? Now we can truly hold each other accountable. We can truly be proud of the work that's being put down, collaborate, talk things through, worry about issues in terms of safety, traffic control, all the paint, the guide rail, all the other things that go into a contract, right? Knowing that the microsurfacing, the bulk of the work was designed properly, that the contractor knows what they're truly signed up for. The contractor can be held accountable accordingly to have the right equipment, the right application rates, and follow a mixed design. And the district, this year has let several projects. As you can see here, it's a combination of roadways, right? So we're looking at a 2-lane road. We're looking at an interstate road. Depending on the roadway, you may or may not do shoulders. You may or may not fill in rumble strips. Microsurfacing can be a tool that can work on a lot of different road conditions when mixed designed and applied properly. So again, this is a story that has been written over time, that I give credit as a taxpayer to the district for staying the course and working through issues, for believing that the goals that they had written down of providing quality roadways in a cost-effective manner, keeping their good roads good, holding to their goals, right? And then changing the plan along the way. That's a testament to them, and a testament to the fact that we all don't know everything, right? So we got to be able to go find people that can add to the conversation so that we can improve what we're putting down, how we're putting it down, when we're putting it down, right? To make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck. Ultimately, project success and increased use of microsurfacing is what came out of this. And I can't speak for the department, but as a contractor in that area, it's exciting to see them have success. It's exciting to see how those different specifications have evolved over time. And when I look at the future, I know that we're excited to share their story. I hope that they've shared their story. And I encourage District 4 and 5 that's here today to work within the entire department, right? Reach out to District 3, reach out to other districts that have had success and or failures to determine why they've had them, why they've had the success that they've had, and ultimately think outside of the box when we design these projects and we look at our roadways. So, thank you. Have a great rest of the day.